Okay, welcome to the shop here at Westbrook Restorations. We're working on a historic fascia. You can see behind me here, that's the lower component. It's a 20-foot long fascia for a historic restoration project we're doing. And so I'm going to show you how we do that here in the shop next. Okay, the first thing that we have done is we've created a pattern piece. Let me show you against our the original fascia that we took out. This pattern piece we made so that we can be assured of a quality product as we put it back in, because it's got to go back into the same place. So what we did in the field was we took measurements, we put our pattern pieces together so that we can match the existing exactly. So we have one pattern piece, we have another pattern piece that goes in right in here as well so that we can do our double layer. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take some of our vertical grain fir and lay it out to biscuit those together. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, so we've pre-prepped the material, but I want to show you some of the steps that we went through in order to do that. First, we took a 5/4 by 8 vertical grain fir and we ripped down the edges. The reason for that is because when you buy an S4S fir, it's got a radius edge on it. So when you're laminating pieces together, you want that nice tight 90-degree corner together. You can, if you take a real close look at the camera right here, you'll see there's a radius finish edge on the fascia here. Now this continues on another 20 feet, but this is a finished edge anyway, so we don't need it. Another component I want to point out is that there's a little notch that we made here. So we have a nice 90-degree here and a nice 90-degree on this piece. When these two go together, what's going to happen is that the glue is going to come out of that seam. But the beauty of it is that our radius comes in real tight right here. So I like to do a little notch like this. Gives us a little bit of an extra meat when this kind of comes down into a little feather. It doesn't come down to nothing. There's a little bit of extra meat in there, and that glue holds that really nicely together. The other thing that we've done is that here's my biscuit joiner. I have an old Porter cable that works really well. And you can see that we've laid out our biscuit joints, and we've also cut for the biscuits as well. And we've laid all of this out, all of these components out, so that when we do our template, and this is why we did the template in the first place, is that we're going to know that we have, enough material to make it work. So instead of wasting material and going too long or going too small, and so we put this on here to make sure that we'll use this pattern and we'll flip it to the other side. You can see over here on the other side I've laid this one out as well. One thing we like to do when we're laminating material is we lay out all of our clamps first, and in this case we just kind of used different clamps that we have around the shop. The other thing to do when you're laminating material that's really nice is to put some paper down underneath your wood so that as the glue bleeds out, it's on paper, and then it's easy to clean up after everything's put together. It's easy to sand off. If you're setting it down on wood, it's going to drip down on your table, and then you're going to have a big mess. So craft paper works really well, newspaper, whatever you have, just make sure you give that layer of protection there. So the next step for us is we're going to glue these together, we're going to clamp them, and we're going to let them dry, and then we're going to start on the next step, which is the second layer of the fascia down underneath there. Okay, so we've clamped up our panels, as you can see here. Here's our clamps. We've glued them all. Here's the piece over here that we've removed all the clamps. So this is what we get is this slab, and this we'll put our template on here. We'll cut this out, we'll sand this down, and we'll show you that process as well. Okay, so the next step in the process of making this historic fascia is actually, if you look behind me, you'll see this sawtooth component here, which is what I'm laying out in this 1/2-inch vertical grain fir pieces. I've got 2 of them that I'm going to mold together. I'm going to lay out the pieces using my framing square and square stops, and then we'll simply cut them out. Okay, so as you can see, we finished our sawtooth part of the fascia. These 2 pieces are still molded together. and we're going to set this aside. As you can also see that we have laid out here, we have the first surface of our fascia, the rear surface of our fascia, and then down here we have all of the pieces molded together, a little bit of sanding done, and also on the portion below as well. So you can see this piece has all been molded together. So these two, the upper and the lower, are going to get sandwiched together. The next step that we're going to do here is, this is why we made the template in the beginning. It's right here so that we can follow through with it. Basically, I'm going to lay this out like so that we can cut this radius and cut the bottom edge here where the soffit is, so that we get this one done. We got another template for the lower piece. We're going to cut all of these pieces of fascia and put them together in those two layers, and then we'll set this in and begin working on the sawtooth on the radius section. We'll kind of show you that as we go along. Okay, we've put the template down, and we just finished drawing out our lines here. And voila! All we have to do next is cut this out. And you can see why we did a template, so that we're not wasting material, but we have enough meat here to go by. So that's why the template is useful through the whole process, so that we make sure we have enough room to work. And now here's the final product. All we have to do is cut it out, sand it up, do the same on all four of these, and put them together. We've put together all these components for this historic restoration fascia piece that we're doing here in the shop. And I want you to point out a couple of things before we start our final assembly. You've seen that we've cut out all the radius work here. Everything's been sanded and put together, glued together, molded together. You can see perhaps maybe in the back what this looks like. Okay, so we're going to have a soffit piece that comes down into here, so everything's molded together, and this back piece will be primed as well as the face. All sides will be primed before it goes in. But what's interesting is we're doing this little sawtooth component here to match existing, and we're going to get this lined up next so we can start doing our radius work. This is actually going to come around to get smaller and smaller and smaller, so we're going to cut those pieces next and lay those in. This is going to get applied and glued in. I want you to take a look at an overall scan here of how long these are. These are about 20 feet long here. We've already cut the peaks on this so that when we bring them out in the field, we'll be able to install those. So all the cuts we're doing right here in the shop. And this is why Westbrook Restorations has a shop, to support our field activities, so we can manufacture these rare components easily and quickly for your project. Okay, so we finished all of our components on this historic restoration fascia pieces that we're doing. These are all vertical grain fir. You can see that we put in all of our individual sawtooth pieces in here on a nice radius that comes around. All of these were cut out of 1/2-inch vertical grain fir. This whole piece is made out of 5/4 vertical grain fir, all the way up 20 feet long. The peaks have already been cut, so the last thing to do with these two pieces is to pre-prime these, let that dry, take them out in the field, and do our installation. And having a shop like this is exactly why Westbrook Restorations is built to withstand. We'll see you out in the field.